Hi, everybody. Welcome back to A Person's Haven. My name is Lindsay, for those of you that don't know me. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we are getting ready for a little friends get together that we're having tonight. Our menu is Lingua tacos. So for those of you that don't know what that is, we will be cooking a cow tongue using the meat of that and making tacos. So the cow tongue takes about 2 hours to cook. We are eating at 5:30. Currently the time is 1:22, so we do not need to get that started yet. But what I do want to get started and get in the fridge so it is ready is some of the toppings for the tacos. So stick around and see what we're going to make. So the first topping that we are going to be making for our tacos is going to be some pico de gallo. Typically, pico de gallo would be made with tomatoes and jalapenos, but I do not have any jalapenos, nor did I want to buy any because I have a whole bowl of Sugar Rush peach peppers. For the most part, I believe I'm going to be trying to make some pepper jelly with them, but I do want to use them in this recipe as well. And I also have a whole bunch of homegrown tomatoes that need to get used, so we will use those as well. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my chopper and I'm going to chop my tomatoes. Hopefully they don't explode all over me. I have priorly washed these tomatoes, so they are washed. And we will just hopefully not get tomato explosion on us. Typically, I would use bigger tomatoes for this, but I have so many of these little cherry tomatoes that I need to use up that is what I'm going to use. Oh, that guy exploded on us. That is the downfall of using one of these choppers with tomatoes, especially cherry tomatoes. All right, we're going to dump this in there. So for those of you that don't know what pico de gallo is, it is fresh salsa. So it consists of tomatoes, onions, peppers, typically jalapenos. My husband enjoys cilantro in it. I don't really like cilantro in it, but I do put a little bit in it just to have a little taste for him. And salt, pepper, and some people also put, oh, guess we'll be cleaning the wall. Some people also put lime juice in it as well. Gosh darn it. Now I'm going to have to clean my whole kitchen before she comes. Let's try to finish this bowl. And then we're going to need to clean up. At this point, I'm already committed to the mess. All right, let me clean up this mess real quick and I'll be right back. All right, so we have about half of a bowl of tomatoes. Now, when making pico de gallo, I don't really have a recipe. I just go by looks. You're going to want more tomato than onion ratio. Obviously more tomato than pepper. But I basically go on looks and then I taste test it at the end. So let's get our onion chopped up. Also, this is my new cutting board. It was sent to me by a viewer, that viewer being my mother-in-law. She told me that she did not like my white cutting board that I used in one of my other videos because it clearly has been used. It's stained. So she bought me this one. So let's test it out. This is the first time. Let's try this guy. If my chopper wasn't completely full of tomato juice, I would have just sent this thing through the chopper as well. All right, so we're going to mix this up and see what it looks like. I estimated that I probably have about 3.5 cups of tomato. And I think I'm going to put the whole onion in. All right, so that looks pretty good there. And really, it's all what you prefer, your taste. Next, I'm going to cut up my peppers, but first I'm going to put gloves on. Anytime you're working with a spicy pepper, you're going to want gloves because you don't want the oils of that pepper to get on your hands and then be stuck there forever. So I think I'm going to just start with 3 and see how it goes. Now these are Sugar Rush peach peppers, and typically pico de gallo is made with jalapenos. But these peppers were given to me by a friend. I did not realize they were as spicy as they were, and here we are with a bunch of these peppers. So I have my garbage right down here, and I'm going to de-vein and de-seed these peppers. The spiciness of a pepper typically comes from the veins and the seeds. So the more you remove, the less spicy it's going to be. The more you leave, the more spicy. I typically remove all of it. All right, and then I'm going to just cut these in small pieces. And throw them into the pico de gallo. All right, let's stir this in. So this is what our pico de gallo looks like. Quick, before I take these gloves off, I'm going to run over and wash this because I'm done cutting the peppers right now. And I want to wash that while I still got the gloves on so I don't get the pepper oils on my hands. All right, we're going to add a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and then a splash of lime juice. We're going to mix this all around. All right, so this is what it looks like. I got some chips. Let's give it a try. All right, everybody. So the next thing we are going to make is a quick pickled onion. This recipe is from scratchpantry.com, which is the website of one of the YouTube people that I follow. Her YouTube channel is Acre Homestead, and she is one of the reasons that I started filming YouTube because I thought it was awesome to be able to watch somebody ordinary just like me working a 9-to-5 job start making videos and then eventually become so popular that she didn't have to work her 9-to-5 job anymore. So if you have not checked out Acre Homestead, go check her channel out. She is amazing. I will actually link her website below for this recipe. So this recipe is called Quick Pickled Red Onions. So her recipe calls for 2 red onions cut very thinly. I only have 1, so that is what I'm going to work with. And I actually have her recipe right here on my iPad to make sure I can get it right. So I'm going to cut this, and then she says place it into a jar. So I'm going to use a pint because I feel like that's probably big enough. So we're going to put these onions in the jar. And try to get them in there packed in as hard as I can, tight as I can, because I want to fit this other onion in there. All right. Let's get this in our jar. All right, the recipe. Let me open it up here. Next says to add half a cup of red wine vinegar. I've never used red wine vinegar before, so I am excited. I think I might grab a funnel to dump this in. Because knowing me, I'm going to spill. All right, it also calls for half a cup of water. So I'm going to take this over to the sink and I'll be right back. Okay, so half a cup of red wine vinegar, half a cup of water. I need to go get my sugar and my salt, and I'll be right back. All right, so it calls for 1 teaspoon of salt. And 1 tablespoon of sugar. It does specify cane sugar, but unfortunately I do not have cane sugar. I just have regular granulated sugar. All right, the next step says put on a ring and lid. This lid has already been used. And then it says to shake a few times to dissolve the sugar and the salt. All right, I'm going to open it real quick to make sure there's no sugar and salt sitting on top, which there's not. We're going to push these onions down into that brine that we have. And then the recipe says let this sit in the refrigerator for 2 to 3 hours before enjoying. It is 2 o'clock right now. We are not eating till 5:30. So if I put this in now, it will have plenty of time to be in the fridge. I'm going to go put this in the fridge and then we'll start our next task. All right, our next task is rather quite simple. We are just cutting olives. Let's go dump out the juice. All right, so we have the juice dumped out. I have a little bowl. And how I like to cut my olives is just 1, 2, 3. Done. Sometimes even 2, depending on where the hole is. Actually, probably most of the time I do 2. All right, everybody, so the next thing we need to get started, because it takes 2 hours to cook, is our meat. So like I said before, lengua is Spanish for tongue. And this right here is a beef tongue. So we're going to rinse it off. We're going to get it in our pot and we're going to get it to start cooking. I actually am going to trim this fat chunk off here real quick. We'll dump this out. And after we're done, we will definitely sanitize the sink here. All right, so we took that fat off. Everything else should be okay. All right, everybody, so we have our beef tongue here. To this pot, we need to add onion, I'm going to do 2 white onions. I'm just going to quarter them. It also says to add half a head of garlic. I do not have a head of garlic, so I'm going to use my minced garlic. And I'm actually going to finish off what's in this jar, liquid and all. And then open my new jar. There wasn't a whole lot of actual garlic in that particular jar. It was mainly the liquid, which is fine because it still has flavor. And we gotta add liquid to this anyways. So I would say maybe 3 tablespoons of garlic to that. It says 6 bay leaves. 5, 6. And then it says 4 tablespoons of whole peppercorns and 2 tablespoons of sea salt. I do not have whole peppercorns, so I am just going to put in some ground black pepper and some salt. All right, then it says to cover this mixture with water, bring it to a boil, and boil it for 1.5 to 2 hours. All right, we're going to put this on high. We're going to put the lid on it, and we are going to let it boil. When it comes to boiling, I will set my timer. All right, everybody, so we are going to make the refried beans next. The first thing we are going to do is put a teaspoon of oil into our Instant Pot. We are going to cook the beans all in the Instant Pot. The next thing we are going to do is we're going to put the Instant Pot on sauté mode. So for my Instant Pot, which is a New Wave, that's sear. And I'm going to set that for as much time as I can. So that's 20 minutes. And then push start. I'm going to pull my trash can back over here because I do need to cut an onion. So let's get this onion cut real quick. All right, so we're going to dice this onion up real quick. I'm not going to make it perfect by any means because we are going to immersion blend all of this. And then it says to saute the onion in the Instant Pot. So I'm going to throw that in here. All right, so the onions started to saute. You saute them a couple minutes. And then Carl says they're turning translucent. And then we are going to add 4 cloves of garlic. I have pre-cut garlic. Honestly, I'm probably going to put this whole handful in. Maybe even a couple more. Looks good.
They're just
Okay, fresh peeled, excuse me. No, I put garlic in there because it asked for a whole head. All right, so mix your garlic in. Let it cook for 30 seconds to a minute. While that's cooking, we're going to add our seasonings. We are going to do 1 teaspoon of everything. So 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, 1 teaspoon of chili seasoning, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. And last but not least, 1 teaspoon of salt. All right, so we're going to mix that into the onions. And then we are going to add our beans. All right, so we're going to push stop. We're going to go get our beans. All right, so this is 2 cups of pinto beans that I rinsed prior to putting them in here. And then to that, you are going to add 4 cups of water. We are going to stir this around, get the seasonings to kind of dissolve in there. Let me show you what I'm looking at. All right, so this is what your liquid should look like once it's dissolved. We are going to close the Instant Pot. We're going to close the seal. We are going to put it on pressure cook, which for me is time. And then we are putting it on for 1 hour and 10 minutes. And we're going to start. This is going to preheat, come up to pressure. It's going to cook for the hour and 10 minutes. And then we are going to let this do a natural release before we open that lid. And I just wanted to show you guys over here real quick. This is what our tongue is looking like. And it smells so good. All right, everybody. So there is one thing I forgot that we needed to make, and that was Spanish rice. We have about 58 minutes left for our beef tongue to boil. We've got about 23 minutes left on our Instant Pot, and then we have to do that natural release. So let's get our Spanish rice made. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn our burner on. You're going to want a pot with a slightly tall side on it, whether it's a pan like this or an actual pot. We're going to put about 2 tablespoons of oil in your pan. Once that oil gets hot, we are going to put our rice in and toast it. Just going to wait till this is heated. The key to this is not walking away when you're toasting the rice, because you don't want burnt rice. You just want toasted rice. All right, so I'm going to dump the rice in. I'm going to kind of stir it around. I don't know if you can hear it sizzling, but it is sizzling. All right, while that's toasting, I'm going to get my tomato juice open so it's ready. So even with this long grain rice, which is brown already, you can kind of tell when it's toasting because it kind of gets a little bit darker brown. All right, so once it's starting to toast, which ours is definitely starting to toast, we are going to throw our onions. I just have one white onion. We're going to throw them in, and we are going to saute them with the rice for a few minutes. Make sure you are stirring. Do not let your rice burn. And then we are going to add 3 teaspoons of garlic in there. And again, stir. All right, now for 2 cups of rice, which is what we have, we need 4 cups of liquid. So I'm going to use tomato juice. Mix that up. And then just to give it a little seasoning, I am going to go grab some Better Than bouillon and put that in there. So I'm doing the roasted chicken Better Than bouillon. I'm going to put about 2 teaspoons in there. And then I'm also going to add 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of cumin, kind of a heaping teaspoon, and some salt to taste. Start with that and we'll see how that goes. Make sure your seasonings all dissolve. My cumin didn't want to dissolve, it kind of bunched up. Alright, so we're going to put this on medium because we do want it to boil. We are going to boil it for about 15 minutes. And then we're going to put a lid on it and simmer it for about 10 more minutes. And then we are going to let it sit. Alright, so I'm going to leave it be for a little bit. We're going to let it start boiling. Start our timer. You do have to stir it. You can't just walk away because it is rice. It will stick to the bottom. All right, everyone, so our rice has been cooking for almost 15 minutes. I turned the temperature down so it's just a simmer. And we are going to put the lid on it. And we are going to reset the timer for 15 more minutes. And we will let it keep cooking. All right, so our timer just went off for our meat. I just don't think these silicone ones, I think they're gonna slip.
You gotta turn it. Turn it.
This is how I'm going.
Okay, go. We gotta go.
All right, so we have to let this rest for 5 to 10 minutes, and then we're gonna come back and peel off the outer skin. We're gonna trim off any of those big fat chunks, and then we are going to get it chopped up and ready to go. So that's what it looks like, fully cooked. And this I'm actually going to save, and I'm going to use it as broth. I'm either debating of canning it or making a soup out of it. Probably going to can it because we are going to have more than enough leftovers for a while. All right, so we let this do a natural release of the pressure. We are going to open it. And I should bring you guys over to look at what it looks like now. So this is what it looks like now, almost like bean soup. And we are going to take the immersion blender and we are going to blend it so we can get refried beans. All right, so I got the immersion blender. When you immersion blend something hot, you have to be very careful it's not going to come back up at you. So I keep mine pretty deep. All right, so our refried beans are a bit liquidy. So what we can do is put them on simmer and let them simmer a little bit to dry out. Do you want them drier? Okay. So we are gonna put them on simmer and let them simmer a little bit. Make sure you keep an eye on it though. Excuse me, I've been saying simmer. I'm talking about sear on mine, or boil on an Instant Pot. So I'm going to just start with 10 minutes, push start, and then we just got to keep an eye on this to make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom. Taste test. He went like this. I don't like refried beans.
Bate, chocolate.
Don't get it on you. So at this point, my microphone did die. So I'm going to talk you through the process of preparing this cow tongue once it's cut. So the first thing you are going to do is you are going to remove the outer skin of the tongue. So this is removing the taste buds, and the outer skin is actually fairly thick and not edible. It is very easy to peel off. Usually it comes off in big chunks, and what's left underneath is the muscle of the tongue. And in a little bit here, I'll actually show you how thick that outer layer is of the tongue. So as you go through and clean, You are also going to take off any big pieces of fat. Sometimes you find some glands that you have to remove. Here's that thickness of that outer layer that you're removing. But the inside of the tongue is just like a muscle, same as what a steak is. It is just a muscle. So as I was saying, you go through and you remove the outer layer. And on the bottom side of the tongue, which we will get to in a little bit here, that's where you're going to find the big fatty deposits. And I did remove some before putting the tongue into the water to cook, but I did leave some of it. So you're going to remove the big fat deposits. You're also going to remove any glands that you find. And you'll know what to remove. It's all going to be that white, slimy tissue. You're going to remove all of that. So here we are taste testing it. It did taste really good. It is a different texture than what other meat is, so be prepared for that. But here I'm showing you that fat layer that you're removing. And right underneath that fat, that white stuff that I'm showing you, that's that glandular tissue that you're going to remove off of there. By not removing it, it makes the meat taste much more irony. And then the last big thing you're going to remove is this piece here, which is actually a tendon. It is very fibrous and hard. It is not edible. I did end up feeding it to the dogs, which they enjoyed, but I did not eat it. Neither did my husband or my friend that came over to visit. So we're just going to finish cleaning this tongue off. And after that, you can slice it however you feel necessary. We actually sliced it and cubed it, which you'll see towards the end of this video. But after supper, when we were eating the leftovers the next day, we actually put the cooked chunks of the tongue into the food processor, and it actually blended it into a ground beef texture, which is what we enjoyed much better than the cubes, because the texture of the tongue, like I said, is a different texture. It's a little more chewy, a little more gummy. So that's what a tongue looks like, fully cleaned. And here is me cutting it and prepping it to eat. And I will let you finish enjoying this process. All right, everybody. So this was the final step to get our supper fully ready. Once I was done cutting this, we set the table and we enjoyed our food, which you'll see pictures of that at the end. The pico de gallo turned out amazing. The pickled onions turned out amazing, and they all complemented each other greatly. We did season the meat with some carne asada seasoning, and we enjoyed our meal. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you guys feel brave enough to undertake Lingua tacos, and hopefully you come back and join me for another video. While you wait for the next upload, I will put some videos on the side for you to enjoy. And until next time, everybody, I hope you have a good day.